seven of spades.
Super competitive when you play for Bingo.
The one of spades. Two of clubs. Porcadas been called. Two porcadas have been called.
So Deke and I are all alone today.
Yeah, we are.
All alone with a whole bottle of wine. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
I'm actually setting up for a wine pairing event for charity downstairs in my tasting room after this. So because I'm doing a Tour of France menu tonight, I thought we would have a Spanish wine. So I did say Tour of France, meant Tour of Spain. Sorry, we're doing Tour of Spain, so I bought a Spanish wine. I know, not very good, eh?
Which you're a big fan of. Massive fan of Spanish wines.
Yeah, so this one is Garnacha Blanca. So it is actually, Grenache sounds very famous if you happen to know a lot about French wines.
Right.
But the Spaniards also use the Grenache grape as well in their blends. Mm-hmm. But the difference is that there's a mutation in the grape, that this is actually a white grape.
Okay.
So that's why it's called your Grenache Blanc, and it's used in the usually in the Rhone Valley in their blends, and it's actually one of the grapes used in Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Interesting.
Yeah. So of course the northern Spain area, this is it's lower acid.
Yeah, very light.
Light, lower acid, bigger fruit, fuller bodied. So those who don't like the acidity of a white wine, they want something a little more mouthfeel, like a red wine, this would be the smoother stuff.
Absolutely.
So I'll have the link to this one, and the cool thing is like $17.95. It always surprises me how many people don't spend enough money on Spanish and Portuguese wines, especially old world wines like that.
Right.
Because their price point for what you're getting is so crazy.
I got my guilty admission here is that most of the wines that I buy are $20 or under.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, even for my menu tonight, I think the most expensive wine I have on the menu tonight is $24.95.
Beautiful.
Isn't that perfect?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this way everyone can go out and shopping and buy everything. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot to get to today. So the girls, of course, are not with us. They had other things going on this evening. And Deke's been on the road all day, so the fact that he even showed up here today was really impressed. So thank you. So we have a lot of industry news, and so I'll fill you in because you've been on the road, so I'm going to fill you in on that. So a couple of cool things, or not so cool things I read. One, there's rumor going around that there's a restaurant in Kingston that opened up that is actually being run by a cult.
Cool.
The fact that you would think that was cool. It's not that cool. But the sad thing is that they're using the front of a restaurant, and it happens to be right across from a student's residence. Wow. So of course all the students will be going there, and so they're constantly leaving pamphlets and business cards, and so there's a lot of nervousness around it. Yeah. I guess this one particular cult's been around for a long, long time, and it's some guy who thinks he is a chosen one. You know how it usually goes in the stories. Yeah. So if anyone wants to read up, or if you know of anyone who's living in the Kingston area, I did put the link in the show notes for this one because I thought it was kind of like movie worthy.
What do you know about the restaurant? What kind of food do they serve?
I don't know the details of it. The place is called the Yellow Deli.
Okay.
But that's pretty much, I don't really talk much about in the article about what specifically they serve, but it's the fact that it just seemed to open up, and I don't remember the details about how investigators or locals have figured out what they're doing. But anyways, I guess there's kind of I guess the big debate is anyone should be able to open a restaurant and open a business regardless of what their beliefs are. Right. And I'm all for that.
But
right. As soon as if you're using it as a front to recruit other people, not so cool. Yeah. So anyways, it's just interesting story. So if someone wants to follow along with that. Second thing is there's problems with Loblaws cards. There's been, I guess what's been happening is some people are just getting that $25 card in the mail with no problem. Okay. Other people are getting letters sent from Loblaws asking for proof of ID, including like photocopies of utility bills to make sure you are you and whatever before they even issue it. So, and including there was some girl in Sudbury in the article that was actually mentioned in that. Sorry, hang on, I'm going to get some more notes. I put in briefcase, because when I say there's a lot of industry news today, there's a lot of industry news today. I was making notes all day today. Other thing is I just posted a course today, Purdy's. That's why you have all the chocolate.
Right. Yeah.
Deke's probably wondering
Did they
where,
open
where
yet?
next weekend. So that's why he's probably wondering why there's all this chocolate. Because I'm really
Yeah, it
hoping that you
was.
snack on some of these, because if you eat them, the less I will.
my
These
God.
what English toffee things are to die
that's what
for.
I'm eyeing right now.
Yeah,
It's
they're
gonna be too
real.
much crunch in the microphone though.
Yeah, those are really crunchy.
Yeah, they look amazing.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah. Anyways, okay, maybe after we do a
My
pause
favorite
later.
feature about Purdy's is when you walk by and they have the flowing chocolate in front of you. It'll be.
See, I've never gone to a Purdy's store. I've only ever
Yeah.
had their product.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to see it. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's I'm kind of always trying to feed people the chocolates because they sent me a lot to sample them. And I can't eat that much sugar, especially at night.
Right.
I keep saying, I'm just going to have one. And then I just kind of overdose and it gets a little crazy.
Yeah.
So this is another rumor I heard. So, Palladino, Honda, they're opening up a BMW dealership across on the Kingsway. And I guess they went and placed an offer to the Deluxe next door. And I heard that they accepted it because they want to use that as their lot, as part of their lot.
So we're gonna lose Deluxe.
We're going to lose Deluxe in the Kingsway, which is very sad.
Yeah.
So I guess they already made an offer the first time, and the owner said no. And then I don't know if there was a secondary or a rethought, but as far as I heard, they accepted it now. So it's very sad. So for those of you who are not in the Sudbury area, Deluxe is our one arch. We are a one arch town. But they're famous for it. I hate to say it. It's one of those things, those late night things. I don't know how many times, or it's the hangover day. Everyone just goes get chicken on a bun with fries. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I remember when they used to have the 99-cent burgers.
Oh,
Those
God.
were popular.
Yeah. Anyways, it'd be very sad. We do have another 2 locations in Sudbury, but the Kingsway one has always been kind of a.
3 locations.
Yeah, to say, well, there'll still be 2 locations,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But the South End one actually is pretty good, I heard. But I've always ever gone to the Kingsway
That's
one.
usually
So,
the one
very sad.
That one.
Another thing has to do with tipping. This one's not a rumor, but I guess the CRA is after restaurant servers and they're auditing them for tips.
Cruel.
Yes, it's starting. I guess they're starting on the East Coast. I guess it's PEI, New Brunswick, some of those areas. I don't know why, if they're targeting those provinces or not. But if they're starting in one province, they are hitting up the rest. So if you are a restaurant server, and it's right now it's tax time, so maybe rethink if sort of skimming a few numbers or guessing at a few things, because they're going to want documentation. So it's always better to play it safe. And especially if most restaurants now, if they're tipping out and they're using their own computer systems to calculate it all, they do have records as well.
Right.
So it's only the cash tips you really have to worry about, but I'm not telling you what to do.
They did.
That's for another episode. Okay, so one other, what were the other, oh my God, there were so many today. You'll see in the show notes, there's a whole list of all these links. I posted one, or I heard about it today, so I guess there was a dog that died, I say passed away, in an overhead bin in a flight.
I heard about that.
And it was such a huge uproar.
Right.
First of all, you shouldn't put animals in overhead bins anyways. As far as I know, we did a previous episode on this at the end of last year where we actually talk about how if the pets are large enough or small enough to get on the flight, they need to be under the seat in front of you like any other thing. They do not go in the overhead bin. And then, so I guess United's the biggest problem for that, or having the biggest problems for that. Another one that came out, an article today.
Were they facing a lawsuit now because of that?
Oh yeah, I know, it's crazy, eh? So that was United.
Yeah.
So now Southwest Airlines, there's this huge video that just got, it's all viral right now, and it shows a family, including a 2-year-old kid, who got kicked off the plane. And somebody caught it on video and just saying it was a natural 2-year-old, not
Breakdown.
being nervous about it, whatever. And I guess they taxied down the runway and somebody called security or did something, and they actually had to turn around and go back, and they were actually escorted off the plane, and it got caught on video.
Oh my God.
Right? And so people are being interviewed about it and saying it's absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe they were being that fussy about it, and whatever. So I posted, if you have any comments about it, I did post it on my Facebook page, just in case anyone wants to put their 2 cents in about kids on planes. And then the other ones, another airline ones, WestJet, they are being charged or being accused of, they're breaking minimum wage laws since the laws changed. I guess there's some flight attendants who are between hours and everything else, and how they're marked and how they're
Been
paid.
adjusted.
They're not changing, or they're getting, so WestJet's being accused of that, which is not very cool. So again, I have that article in the show notes. And then the last one, this was, there's a wine blogger that I follow on Twitter, and I'll put the link to the article in there. I guess there's a new LCBO that opened up just, I want to say in Niagara Falls proper, not quite Niagara on the Lake. So it's in Winona LCBO, and it's a brand new one. They had a big brand opening for the store. And one of the things that this blogger was commenting on, which I completely agree, is that, first of all, Niagara is wine country
Right.
in
Yes.
Ontario.
Yeah.
There is a big difference when you're in the LCBO compare for a VQA wine, which is the Vintners Quality Assurance, and those other ones called International Blends, 100% Ontario, whatever they want to label them, they are not VQA.
Right.
Meaning that they're not following the same strict guidelines. They are not using, it's not all 100% grown, produced, etc. in Ontario or in Canada specifically. So these other blends, I don't want to name specific brands, but everyone kind of knows the names of them. But all they have to do is only have 25% of Ontario grapes in it to qualify as 100% Ontario. So they import grapes here, they produce them here in Canada, so they've ticked all the boxes to be qualified,
Technicalities.
but they are not VQA.
Right.
And which was, this blogger actually pointed out, which I thought was right on, was that he said, you know, this is wine country, these are people's lives, and you're putting right beside it, not in a separate section, like you can actually see the VQA, and right beside it is the 100% Ontario or created in Canada ones, or whatever they want to call them, all together in the same one. And if you're not aware of the fact that these are completely different producers, or not actually all made in Ontario, it's not Ontario grapes or anything else, you're probably assuming that it's all the same thing. So it doesn't give the same kind of weight to the people, to the wineries that are here in Ontario. So I completely agreed with him on that. I guess LCBO was none too pleased with this guy commenting on it, but I wanted to give him a shout out because I think he's right. I think his name is Rick, and it's going to bug me. I'm going to pull up my Twitter because I just want to give him a shout out because I was pretty impressed with it.
I'm still not on Twitter.
You're still on Twitter?
I'm still
It's new.
not.
It's a slippery slope once you're on. There it is. Rick Van Sickle. You can follow him at Rick Wine on Twitter. He does a blog every once in a while. He had 4 different stories on there. One of them's about a fun time he had at Gretzky Estates. But I was really interested in that LCBO thing because I do think that there's a lot of people who don't understand what VQA is. So if you want to support Ontario wineries, please shop for 100, not the 100% Ontario, that doesn't mean anything, but look for the VQA signature on it. And then there was other 2 funnies, which I thought was funny. So this drunk driver out west drove to an RCMP station. Okay, he arrived there drunk to go and visit a friend who's in custody. And I thought, at some point, did the guy not think, and I guess he was already being charged with drunk driving already, he already had it in his record, he wasn't supposed to be driving at all. But I thought, how funny that he had actually just pull up to the station. Anyways, I thought that was funny. And then there's another thing going on right now about bottled water. And this doesn't necessarily go into the food, drinks, and travel part of the show, but you know, it is a beverage. Water is water, and there is a lot of, and this is not necessarily an environmental thing, but there's a lot of studies right now that are showing that there's like miniature plastic particles that are actually getting into the water. And there's, I don't forget what the percentages are. There's all new stats and stuff on it. So I do have a link with that story if people want to read up on it. Really makes you rethink buying that case of 24 bottles when they're on sale for $3-4.
Yeah.
I've always kind of found it strange that, you know, we have so much water in our country and we buy more water in bottles than anything else. I always thought that was really weird.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you have major restrictions across the states.
Yeah. So it makes me want to go out and buy things like Brita, and I have like a filter built into my fridge, and that's how I get my water at home. So I don't use bottled water in the house. But I do notice that when we're out here at the office, we have bottled water to offer guests. And so it's kind of making me rethink how I'm going to do water service from now on. Interesting. So that was the industry stuff, which was a lot. So let's get to the bulk of the show. I want to talk about food for charity. So, Deke, you didn't come to Porchetta Bingo with Cynthia and
I know. I wasn't able to make it.
I know, and I was sicker
I
than
really wanted to go.
I was sicker than a dog. Well, lucky for you, we have it every weekend.
I will go.
Just about every weekend, you can always find Porchetta Bingo here in Sudbury. So I want to talk about 2 ways that foods can be used for charity purposes. So either food is as a prize, so that would be, which is a little unusual. Yes, you can
I've done
get,
it.
or you get gift certificates that you could buy at charity events or raffles and things like that. But things like porchetta bingo, where you're actually winning. So yes, we gamble for meat here in Sudbury.
Yeah.
So porchetta bingo, there's now the new trend for wingo bingo.
Right.
So porchetta's not your thing. There's some ones that are offering a pound of wings. Sometimes there's silent auction donations. And then there's also food as a theme or the entertainment, which is the star of the show. And there's a lot of people and a lot of charities are kind of leaning towards that because people are less likely to say no to going to an event where they know they're going to be entertained, have great food, wines, whatever.
Right.
So whether they're a charity dinner, whether a walk around tasting like a wine show. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people don't know this, but unless you have a liquor license or associated with a restaurant and have the proper licensing, if you get a special occasion permit, you are not supposed to be making profit off your alcohol. So if you get a special occasion permit to do an event, so when I'm doing my wine tasting classes, I actually have a charity associated to it. So that the net proceeds of my event, I will, and it varies from year to year, I donate to a local charity. And that's just because until I get a permanent license where I decide I'm going to finally park myself, because I've been moving locations on an ongoing basis. So once I have a steady place, then I'll be able to get a liquor license, and it won't be, then you can start making profit, which is a little bizarre, but basically you have to be a charity for it.
Interesting.
So licensing is very strict. Actually, I was reading old articles from back in 2006 that porchetta bingo was actually illegal here in Sudbury for a little while. And it had to do as much as our city was licensing people to host these games. The problem has to do with the definition of what the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario, they didn't quite understand it.
Right.
Because there's all these other rules about, like, well, it's not really a bingo. It's not using the same kind of bingo equipment, right? And then you're kind of giving away stuff to people, but you're kind of forcing them to be there to get their prize, which doesn't quite... So there's all these rules that it was breaking, but it's now becoming... They've figured out how the rules are. They've figured out how the applications work.
Right.
But it's usually kind of spearheaded by the actual local bars or restaurants that are hosting it. And then they just invite other charities to actually participate each week. So I'm not going to give you the entire rundown of how the porchetta bingo works, but I did include a link in the show notes because I wrote an article about this for I think it was a Sudbury tourism page about a year or 2 ago. And it actually details the step-by-step on how to play porchetta bingo. So if you're going to one and you've never been to one,
Which
like
I
Deke.
never have.
Yeah, so you will actually can do a quick little read-through to get, so you don't look like you're not knowing. The biggest thing is, first of all, pay attention. Because if you don't pay attention and you, because it gets very noisy, everyone's drinking in the bar. If you hear the wrong card being called and you make a mistake, the entire crowd heckles you with vulgarities.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. And then the other thing is that's you miss, or because then you have to embarrass yourself by calling out saying that you got porchetta when you didn't actually get porchetta.
Yeah, like
so then
the
everyone.
bingo. I'm getting the vision. But I just think it's funnier because
And then of course the caller has to start all over again and start reading off everything that they missed so people can catch up, right? So it delays things. Anyways, people get feisty. And then the other thing is that you don't yell bingo at porchetta bingo. You have to yell porchetta. That's just one of those things. So, porchetta bingo. The 411. Let's just do the basics of how the game is played before we start going into all the nitty-gritty, how you set one up for a charity. So there's, this is a fancier one.
Very fancy, being packing tape.
This is a fancier porchetta bingo. There are playing cards that are taped together in groups of 3s, all assorted. And for the charities, they usually have a flat fee that you pay, and you get to choose 3 strips of 3 cards. And then if you're really fancy, you bring your own bingo dabber or markers. And if you're not that fancy and you want to actually play it the right way, you go and get the bottle caps that they have picking around.
They're always beer caps, and if you're superstitious, you want all of your beer caps to match. That's my pro tip.
Yeah, pro tip, obviously. Okay, so just like regular bingo, the caller is going to call out random cards from another deck of cards. Every time you have one matched, you basically just put one of your beer caps or markers on the card that they call. As soon as one of your 3 strips or strips of 3 is filled, you hurry up and you yell porchetta. Now, I've been scolded before. You don't
Must yell
porchetta. You cannot yell bingo because bad things will happen to you if you yell.
Public scorn and ridicule everywhere.
And just like the name describes, you do actually win porchetta. So I will put a recipe for porchetta in the show notes in case you're not so lucky to have porchetta bingo or porchetta made at a butcher shop near you. But essentially it's slow-cooked pork roast with a whole pile of seasonings. In Sudbury we're really well known for it, and there's a huge debate about whether it should be dill-based or fennel-based. I personally, I'm a fennel girl.
I'm a Siberian, so it's dill based in my world.
Yeah. So you have a choice of, so you get basically a slab of meat that you can either eat at the event or you can take it home with you if you like. Some porchetta bingos also, depending on their supplier of the meats, if it's a butcher shop, they may be offering things like sausages and other things that you can also take home to your freezer. I didn't know if you knew that.
No, I did not.
Yeah, so Trevi Tavern does that where they'll have different meats, and same thing for not so much the beef and bird, Farragon's in Garson.
Yes.
Same one. So, because I did an article for City of Sudbury, for Sudbury Tourism, and I basically just did like 2-3 weeks of porchetta bingo, back to back to back to back. Never won once. Had to buy my sandwich, but that's okay.
That's all right. You won today, though.
I did win today.
Exciting.
Yeah,
Steph
very
won
excited.
her first pound of porchetta today.
Yeah, it only took how long, right? Anyhow, so to set one of these up is pretty easy. I have never set one up before, but you have, or you've been involved with the charity that's doing
involved
it.
with the charity that's doing it. So the most important thing is to recognize that it is actually gambling. And if you're in Ontario, there are rules around that. You need to contact the AGCO, the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario, and arrange to have a proper license for your bingo. Especially anytime anyone pays money to win something, that becomes gambling. You need to be over the age of 18 to play any kind of bingo. That's something that's important to us, but as it might be to bring the kids along. It's not really a thing. Typically it's played if you contact a local bar, like a tavern. It's definitely something that they like to get behind. It's also typically played during the day as well too. So when bars are a little bit quieter, they're happy to have a rowdy bunch come in, have a few drinks, and play to win some meat.
Like this rowdy bunch.
Like this rowdy bunch.
We have a full house here today.
So, and again, logistic-wise, you want to make sure that you've got a couple of decks of cards that you can you can actually do your drawing from, to call from, in addition to the ones that you're taping together. If you're very fancy, some places will actually laminate them in strips of 3, just last a little bit longer.
Crazy.
And that's about it. You sell your tickets. Most places around here, it's $20 to play for the day, or you'll do $5 for a round.
Now the $20, that's for, I'm assuming it goes until they run out of porchetta.
Until they run out of porchetta.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So some days it lasts quite a long, depends on how fast your caller is. So you also want to make sure that when you are kind of orchestrating the event, that you're also being aware that caller is pacing themselves, so you can actually make sure that the people who paid to come have a good time and they get their kind of money's worth of playing all day. The way our team structures it, we've got someone at the front who handles the money, who's selling the tickets or the cards. We always run a 50-50 at the same time, so a 50-50 draw where everyone buys tickets and then the winner takes home half of the pot. That does also need to be licensed through your local city bylaw office.
Which is separate from your bingo license.
Yes. And then we have someone who's doing the calling as well. It's a good idea to have runners around so that runners will go when someone wins and yells porchetta to check their cards and then gets them their porchetta as well so they can stay in their seats and continue playing.
Yes. So people don't go and steal your cards.
Right?
So that's about the how-to for Porchetta Bingo. So again, the instructions are going to be in the link in the show notes. It'll be under the section that says resources and links. And of course, the show notes are located at stephaniepichet.ca/flavor31, because we're episode 31 this week. So then a couple of things I want to talk about, just to give you some ideas. If you're planning to do a charity dinner, there's some things that I've kind of learned over the years of what to do and what not to do really works. I'm always a big one on not trying to copy what another charity is doing. If you have to explain to someone, remind them which charity it is, because your events, just like the other ones, are there. You're not really differentiating yourself from another nonprofit. So really get creative on the theme, change the location, do something different, style of service, whatever. Sometimes the money is not always the focus. So don't have 50,000 money-making things in the same event, because sometimes just the networking or getting people to learn more about your charity, possibly offer some volunteer opportunities for them, networking that way, future follow-up donations, maybe future sponsorships. I know a lot of nonprofits that get success with bringing in people one year knowing that they might become sponsors the following year.
Right.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then storytelling about it. And again, so the volunteerism is usually a pretty big one as well. Make sure you choose your prizes wisely. One of the things for silent auctions or anything else is that the best situations turn out to be bidding wars. I know that because I've spent way too much money on those silly things. Right. I try to stay away from live auctions, or actually Norm tries to keep me away from live auctions because it doesn't usually end well.
Live auctions.
Oh, it just makes me stressed out, and then I get competitive, and then I want to win, and then I end up spending money on things that I probably shouldn't have bought in the first place. But so I'm a sucker at charity events. That's probably why I keep getting invited to go to all of them. And then corporate guests. Sometimes if there's a lot of businesses that going to certain events and it's like a high profile one, letting other businesses or their competitors know who's going really inspires some networking abilities, right? There's some people in sales that are actually going to these events to meet potential clients, that kind of thing. So kind of spinning that when you're selling the idea of attending or sponsoring it's a good idea.
Right.
And then I always, I'm a big thing about showing appreciation. I really appreciate it when I get either a thank you note card or letter or something from the charity thanking me for not just coming, but maybe either donating or sponsoring or something like that. Basically shows that you didn't forget about me when the event was over. Absolutely. And then there's another one, which is kind of crazy. When you're planning it, you have to be okay with hearing no. Because just like a sales opportunity, you're selling the event.
Yes.
So if you're selling, I don't care how great the food is, the chef is, whatever else, if somebody just doesn't have the money to attend, they can't attend. And you have to be okay just hearing no. If someone doesn't want to donate to your event, it's not because they don't think it's worthy. A lot of times, I know for myself, depending on certain times of the year, I'll get at least one request a day.
Yeah.
And I can't do all of them. So just keep that in mind, that if you were always being asked for donations and stuff and how you would handle it. So just be aware of that when you're trying to do that. So a couple other fun things I'll do in the show notes as well is I'm going to put in a recipe for porchetta. A really easy one that I found through allrecipes.com. Basically, it has both the dill and the fennel in it. There's some people who are very anti-dill or anti-fennel. It seems to be like a divide about what's your preferences. I'm a fennel girl myself. But if you...
have you ever explored fennel pollen?
I haven't explored, not for porchetta.
Okay.
Porchetta is all about the seeds. You kind of need the crunch in there. I do have another recipe that I've used that uses orange in it. Because I love the orange and fennel together. Nice. So good.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So this is just a basic one. So this would be similar to what you would find here at a porchetta bingo. So you can kind of do your own recipe if you want to play something interesting on the weekend. Knowing you can't bring your own porchetta to the bingo. Hopefully you didn't read that part into it. So a couple last little things before we get into the fly in my soup. Porchetta bingo. So a couple of things to note that it may not be in the instructions. This is if you're planning to plan it. So you got to choose a date well in advance because of the licensing issues. Again, you have to get a license from the AGCO, and you also have to get a license from your city. And there's a process for doing all this stuff. And if there happens to be a backlog, or depending on the time of the year, you can't do this like the last minute. So plan your date well in advance when you want to do it. Choosing a location, if you happen to be in the Sudbury area, choosing a location that already is familiar with porchetta bingo and how it works. But most bars or taverns, as Cynthia said in the section just before this, there are a lot of bars that are be more than happy to have you come in and do an event in the Saturday afternoon where there's probably nothing else happening at their establishment, and it gets people out there and drinking, and it's a fun way to kill a Saturday afternoon.
You heard about Sudbury's largest porchetta bingo coming, right?
It's in May sometime, isn't it?
I'm part of it.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
Oh,
so I
exciting.
will be going to a porchetta
Well, you
bingo.
better go to a porchetta bingo before May, though.
Yeah, I'll
You
try.
can't go
I
in
hope
like
so.
a novice.
I know.
You gotta
I
know what you're
can't.
doing.
I can't. But the idea is that have you had the Velvet Sunshine hummus that I make?
No.
It's the spicy one with the orange, the curry, and the mango.
No, I haven't had that one yet.
So instead of mustard, because they give mustard.
Oh,
away, right?
yes.
So,
That's a cool idea.
yeah, they'll be giving away my hummus.
Yeah.
So there's supposed to be 500 people at this one.
Wow.
The
it's
Sudbury
gonna-
Arena.
So that'll be a lot of things. So actually, I'll take the information and I'll put that on the show notes too.
Cool.
So that somebody wants to bookmark it or whatever to make a note of it so they can go in the future. I think that'll be a lot of
The
fun too.
charity is Wolves United. Wolves
Oh,
United,
that's
yeah.
cool. For people who aren't in Sudbury, that's our Sudbury Wolves team. We are
Combined
we are
with United
Howlers,
Way.
big and proud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Last
okay.
game tonight too.
Oh, is it the last game already?
Yeah.
God, time flies, eh? Must be getting close to spring.
Mm-hmm.
You'll need to find, besides the porchetta bingo, besides the date and location, you'll also need to source out who's making the porchetta. Of course, you can't make yours from home and sell it. It goes against health unit laws.
Yeah.
But if you find a local butcher to, basically it's just the seasoning, having the roast ready, delivered hot, and then it needs to be kept hot on site.
Yes.
So most restaurants or bars or whatever should have the facilities for that. So those are kind of things you need to organize. Keep in mind that if you're going to be hosting this, the average size of prize is 1 pound of meat. So keep in mind that if you're planning to have 100 games that day, then you'll need 100 pounds of porchetta.
Right.
That's the way it works. Again, because this is an actual licensed thing, you are gambling. These events are supposed to be for 18 and over. So even if you're at a bar, it's not necessarily 19. You can have 18-year-olds going to it because they're allowed to play the porchetta game, but they just won't be able to have drinks or whatever. But that's up to the bar, of course. And then I've seen people on certain comment websites here locally saying that they bring their kids all the time. I don't know where they're going. I have never seen kids at any. I've seen college students showing up at a lot of them because it's a lot of fun for them, especially the kids who are here for the weekend. It's a great way for them
I
to kill
know
a week
about
too.
it happening. I don't want to say any places.
Well, it's the same thing. It's one thing to
Oh.
let kids open like Nevada tickets and stuff when you're at home. Like there's always going to be some, but legally no kids are supposed to be playing
exactly.
porchetta. It is gambling after all.
Yeah.
So you're going to need, of course, a couple of sets of decks of cards. The cards are actually either taped together or if you're fancy, they're laminated.
Right.
So there's 3 cards in a strip. Average price is probably about, I think it's $2 per strip that you can play, or you can do $5, I think, for 3. But if you go to some of the bigger charity events, the way they run it is they just ask for a flat fee of like about $20, and then you get 3 sets of 3, and you can play for the whole afternoon. And then when they have their breaks, you can actually trade in your cards, like what Norm traded his cards in like 3 times that day, because he figured it was the cards that were the problem.
So is the porchetta usually donated?
No, they actually buy it, so it's built into the cost.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how they make it. So the interesting thing is that depending on the bar or restaurant, you may not be paying directly to the butcher for the meat. A lot of times the bar, if they're running them on an ongoing basis, everything goes through the restaurant.
I see. Okay.
So they'll charge, I know that there's one place in town, they charge about $20 or $22, and the charity gets to take home like 18. So one of the perks is that the restaurants are smart because they're making the profit on the alcohol and the drinks and stuff and the extra bar food and snacks that are there because you're bringing the crowds, and then you get a good chunk to be donated back to your charity. So that's one of the reasons that charities are doing this all the time. So I know that she also mentioned, Cynthia mentioned there, they also did a 50-50 draw that day as well. So there are other ways to add in additional money-making things if you need to for yours. But you got to make sure you have enough volunteers because you need runners to go around and check to see if you actually had porchetta. Remember we said you don't call it unless you know. And then to hand out the prizes so that you don't have people getting up off your seats to go and get the porchetta themselves. There's a couple places where you go up and get your own because they actually have it set up that you can build a sandwich right there. But I just butcher paper, just open
Sure.
it and eat
Yeah,
it as
just
is,
like
right?
that.
As is.
Right.
So if you're outside of Sudbury and you want to start this in your own town or city, these again, the instructions are in the show notes. It's a lot of fun. It's something to do on a Saturday afternoon, especially if you know a local bar or tavern that'd be willing to do something like this. Just find your favorite charity. And if you're traveling, there are always charity-based events like these. So whether there's dinners, there's bingos, there's other things. If you're looking for something to do, instead of just going out for dinner one night, why not go and find a charity dinner in the city or town that you're going to? So not only do you get to taste the foods from the area that you're visiting, but you also get to be helping people in need at the same time,
Right.
which I think is kind of a cool thing. I think it'd be fun to do an entire tour or trip or road trip and do nothing but charity events. I think that'd be fun, right? See how much
Absolutely.
money you can raise for like one charity for like a weekend or something.
Kidding.
So I think that's about it for the porchetta for now. You're all going to be craving it once you finish listening to that. And actually, when you're listening to it, and if you're in Sudbury, of course, there's a porchetta bingo somewhere. All you have to do is Google it on Facebook or just put it in the search bar, and guaranteed there'll be a few pop up. Fly in my soup. The only reason I'm mentioning this part is because Deeks, you're the one that posted it this week. And I want to hear why you found it so funny. So this is the time of the episode, the Fly in My Soup, where we get to vent a little bit. And Deeks seemed to think it was funny about kicking people out of your house at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, there's
Because there's either, the pet peeve is either that guests who never go home, or it's hosts like me who tend to, I call it, my friend calls it pulling a Houdini. Remember
Right.
Robin was here? Her and I are both notorious for it.
Cynthia as well.
Yeah,
too.
Cynthia says too. It's one of those things that when I am tired and all of a sudden you don't see me anymore, it's kind of like self-serve and see your way out.
So it's like the same. We're on the same standpoint. There's
Okay.
there's a breaking point, right, between you and me and Cynthia.
Okay.
We all have breaking point, but there's a point where it's like being a single dad and etc. You know, having kids the next morning or whatever the case. It's the meme. It was a meme that I posted, and there was this very small buffet, and above that, it was like instead of one of those happy birthday strand signs, it said "Please leave by 9." I thought it was charming. I thought it was funny, but it was one of those things, especially if you're doing everything alone, and you just don't have that. Either you don't have that help in the kitchen to help tidy everything up after the amount of courses you've done or whatever, or sometimes you just don't want the help. It's like, I'll just kind of clean it.
I always do it
but
the next morning. And
Yeah.
that's just, and
Yeah.
it's because either it becomes an entire, everyone is cleaning because everyone feels guilty. No one wants to sit.
Yeah.
And that's not fun for anybody.
Yeah,
And that's
no,
not the note.
exactly.
That's not the note that I want to end an evening on.
Right.
I will always happily do the dishes and clean up the next day.
Yeah.
And then I'm also big on, I always feel like I'm missing out on stuff because I'm always the one in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So I don't get to be involved in the conversations. I find things are rushed because I'm constantly looking. So basically I'll clear plates, stack them up in the corner. And then as soon as I sit back down immediately, that is the signal of, no, we're not doing dishes now.
Right.
No, you're not helping me put stuff away
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
If
yeah.
anything, you can take leftovers home and here's the containers. And aside from that,
No, exactly.
that's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a note. So that's a little venting thing. So if
I thought it was
you're a guest at someone's house, be very cognizant of the fact
Of
that
the
they may
hints.
not want you to be pulling an all-nighter.
Right.
Sounds good to me.
Excellent.
All right. I don't even remember what we're talking about next. Oh, I know what we're talking about next week.
We're
We don't
talking
have a
about-
show tape here next week because this girl is in Santa Monica.
Excellent.
Yes. So I'm leaving next Wednesday. So I'll be in Santa Monica area Wednesday to Saturday.
Okay.
So yes, on the day that I'm leaving is the big student march that's happening in the States is the day that I'm leaving. Wow. So we're going to be, I doubt very much there'll be a whole lot of commotion down by LAX, but we'll see. I always say I'm never going to see it, but when I say I don't, that's when we kind of run into it, right? So if I do see it, it'd be kind of cool because I really do think that what they're doing is phenomenal. And I don't remember any time during high school, college, or anything that there was groups of friends that were protesting and really standing up for the rights like that. So I think that's very cool.
Absolutely. Well, it's come to a point where it's enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of time, and
Yeah, it
it's
is.
nice to see that kind of solidarity.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be able to sort of see there and kind of cheer them on in person, I think will be very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, not just going to tape clips of things for the podcast. It'll be similar to what I did in Portugal, where I'll kind of do a little once over of what to expect from the area. And then, of course, I'm going to have little videos again that I'll take here and there, down by the pier, and then maybe walking up the promenade on 3rd Street. A couple of other areas, restaurants that maybe we're going to. I'll be said I'm going to Jose Andres, which is my favorite place. And this way I'll have a little video to go along with the show for next week.
Are you going to see any wineries?
I don't usually in the Los Angeles area. I probably could be. We don't have a vehicle. We're not renting a car this time. And I'm bringing, I say the kids, like they're in their 20s. I can't really call them technically kids, but they're still my kids.
Yeah.
But the kids are coming with us for the first time. They've never been to California.
Cool.
So they have all their own plans, and they're going to Uber it where they need to go. And Norm's in meetings on one of the days. So I was debating whether I was going to go and see wineries this time, but I think I'll leave it for the next time I go.
Okay.
This time is more about, I need sun. I don't care if it's only 18 or 19 degrees Celsius. I am planning to go and kind of hang out at the beach and kind of wander around, and to be spending a few days and not wearing 8 layers of clothes is going to be really nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm looking
Absolutely.
for.
Good girl.
We have priorities, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be next week. And if you have any other show ideas for future episodes, I keep getting messages all the time. I actually have some pretty cool stuff coming up. So keep an eye on our Facebook page where we give you updates for the next week. And if you want to plan ahead for particular episodes, because you're listening to us on an ongoing basis, yay for you. You can subscribe to the newsletter anywhere on stephaniepichet.ca. You'll find there's a little banner on the right-hand side that says sign up here. And every first of the month, I send out behind the scenes little photos or videos of things that we've done over the month, any other photos or things that haven't been going on social media, any bonus recipes of things that were kind of mentioned during the month that we didn't actually post anywhere. There's also the entire schedule for usually the next month that's on that. So you can kind of plan ahead about which episodes you're planning to make a point of listening to right away. I think that's it. Deke, anything else?
I think it's great. I just noticed that wine has a hint of honey just at the end. I just appreciate it. It took me all episode to wonder what it was. I'm like, oh, that's honey.
That's a great way to end the episode. Deke's going, you know what? I just noticed I tasted something in that wine. And I said, okay, it only takes a...
Am I right?
Yeah, I did. Everyone has their own palate difference. But yeah, it's probably because it's a little bit on the syrupy side too.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of floral notes to it.
Yeah.
That's probably where you're getting from that.
Yeah, beautiful. I really enjoyed this one.
That's good. Well, now you have the link. You can buy your own. Okay. So thanks for listening to Flying for Flavor. Make sure you subscribe to us so that we can kind of see where you're listening from, and then maybe we can come to the roadshow and come and do an event near you. Until next week, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.